and subscribe. And today we have a classic character from a classic movie. I already know you guys know. Big Worm. Yeah, Big Worm, right? Now, here on Randumb Rants, right, we focus on villains and critical side characters, okay? Yeah, you're going to get your Steve Urkels, you're going to get your Zach Morrises and your Martin Paynes eventually, right? But before you were to get that, I would have to feed you like something like the Pookie story first, right? See, I don't even know Pookie was a decent Rucker Park point guard. Pookie's actually his Rucker Park nickname. Y'all didn't even know that. See? Yeah. I still owe you guys the Juanita from Baby Boy. You know? But today, we're going to focus on Benjamin Langford, a.k.a. Big Worm. And I know who you think his character was based off of, right? I know. We know who you think it's based off of, right? Like, we know. But let me tell you though, Grandpa Rants always told me, you don't get paid to think, right? And Big Worm is a real person, of course, right? In fact, he did a whole interview on DJ Vlad. Now, I know Vlad don't play with his content, right? So if he does flag this video, I'll just redo it, you know? But, yeah, Benjamin, Big Worm Langford, he did a whole Vlad interview, right? And he actually gets in detail of the events that happened in the movie, right? So we're going to do this a little differently. Okay, hear me out. We're going to do this a little differently. We're going to start from the beginning, like we always do. We're going to get into, some of the events of the movie, like we always do. But then we'll actually talk about Big Worm's actual explanation of why he did these things, So, everything can make sense, right? So, with all that being said, of course, let's start from the beginning, right? And we got Benjamin Langford, right? Big Worm, right? And he's actually not from South Central LA. No, he's from Emerald Hills, California. Yeah, I mean, he grew up selling ice cream in his neighborhood. That was his first hustle. And he was a stellar football player, right? He played for his high school, Woodside High, right? Stellar, okay? But understand, Big Worm is coming up, Benjamin at the time, right? He's coming up during, the crack era, right? And in Emerald Hills, right? Big Worm wasn't really a part of a gang. He wasn't banging per se, right? But he is affiliated, let's just say, with the 5800 Old Memory Lane Bunny Boys from Emerald Hills, okay? I know what you're thinking. Oh, you're getting the AI stuff out. No, all these are real pictures. Bunny Boys. Boom, you see who posted it? Bunny Boys. Yeah, right? Now, of course, he's coming up in the crack epidemic, right? But on this DJ Vlad interview, right? Big Worm confirms he's never sold crack. Never sold PCP. Because it was too many years attached to it, right? Now, he mentioned he saw a lot of his crew get arrested selling crack, right? And he decided to be under the radar selling decent quality dro, okay? He figures, everybody, partakes in the dro. It's more player-like. And in high school, he noticed kids would be having these things called sessions, right? And he felt he could be that supply for that demand of that marijuana, that was needed for those students in those sessions, right? Now, understand this, right? Big Worm also confirms in this DJ Vlad interview that he has peoples in LA. He has family off 103rd and Hoover, right? So he was already familiar with the LA scene. He was coming up there, growing up, right? And now, he's making his little bit of money, pushing his dro, right? And of course, it's the 90s. And he's stepping up LA. He's like, we can set up shop up there, right? And he doesn't live in LA. He actually confirms this in the Vlad interview as well. He's living in the Valley during the events of the movie, right? So he's living in the Valley. He said during the time, Squares was living in the Valley. He's in the Valley. It's older people with blue hair eating toast, in the morning, So he enjoyed the Valley. He was like, he's not going to, let's just say, poop where he eats at, right? Because he has his business, right, in the hood. Now, as mentioned before, right, Big Worm, Benjamin Langford, of course. Now he's Big Worm now, right? Because he's a boss in his own sense, right? He's in LA, and his cousin from 103rd and Hoover, he's down with him, helping him stomp down. And he also got his cousin's best friend, Manny, right? Now, Manny is the guy who introduces Smokey to Big Worm. All of this is confirmed in the Vlad interview, right? He's been knowing Manny since coming up to LA and dealing with his cousin for years. So he was like, all right, and I guess Manny went to school with Smokey, right? And Smokey wanted to get down. Like, yeah, he trying to get on, basically, right? And Big Worm is the man. So Big Worm naturally thinks, Smokey, like he's a goofy kid. He's a funny guy. Like, he's not serious, And you got to understand, this business that Big Worm is dealing in is a serious business. At the time, marijuana was still illegal, right? He said he never wanted to deal with the harder drugs. So he's just dealing with the marijuana, the decent quality dro, right? And he's like, all right, I get a goofy dude a chance. He puts Smokey on with a pack, okay? Now, understand the events of the movie, right? Because we're about to get into the movie, okay? Because now I didn't caught you up. You feel me? I done caught you guys up, right? But you guys are so fascinated off the movie Friday, and it focuses on one day, just Friday, right? You don't really understand what's going on before that, though. And it's like you don't even care. You've seen this movie 80, 90, probably 100 times, But you don't care about Sunday. You don't care about Wednesday. See, because to understand the movie Friday, you would have to understand Sunday. You would have to understand Wednesday. Once you understand those events, then Friday will make more sense to you, right? Now, understand, on Sunday, that was the day that Smokey got put on with the pack, okay? And Big Worm just said, yeah, just hit me off with like 200, by Friday. I really need it by Thursday, but yeah, Friday for a fact. Smokey said, I got you, man. But understand what happens on Wednesday, right? Because Smokey is moving a little bit. He's moving a little bit of bags, right? But on Wednesday, and this is spoken about in the movie, right? On Wednesday, right? Smokey is a known, I guess they call him hypes now. You could be called a Hoover. Like, he's known to smoke. He smokes with everybody, right? He doesn't necessarily always have it, even though he is on this particular week. But he smoke with everybody. That's what he's known to do. If you guys, any of my subs grew up in the hood, you guys familiar with these characters, right? In the hood, right? He's known to just smoke up everybody's weed, right? In this particular case, Hector and the Amigos already know this about Smokey. See, the movie is only about Friday, but what about 2 Fridays before that? When Smokey smoked up all the Hectors in them dro and just walked off. Didn't even match him. What about that day? You didn't even care about that. No. No, you're so fascinated about Craig and his father taking bowel movements. You're missing out on the movie. Right? So Hector and the Migos, they already familiar with how Smokey gets down. And now, what you don't know is Hector and the Migos, they like this on certain days. They like to get in their fiesta mode, right? They like to get in their fiesta mode, right? And they invited Smokey to come smoke with them. But they, Smokey didn't know they was about to get into a little fiesta, let's just say, right? And y'all, you guys remember the scene, right? Smokey's in that back seat. And, he's like, hey, Smokey, hey, hit this. Smokey's like, I smoke with the best of them, man. You know him, right? And he hits it, right? And they like, oh, Holmes, take your time with that. And he's like, what? What was wrong? He's hitting it. Then he starts twitching. Oh, we didn't know you like to get wet. Yeah, Sherm, PCP, Crunch, Butt Naked. We didn't know you like to get high off the harbor, Smokey. Yeah, that's Angel does, Holmes. Smokey starts tripping out. Now, the movie, of course it's a movie, right? So they show him running around with his tank top on and boxers, but no. We all knew what really happened. Yeah, we know how Smokey was really running around outside. Yeah, we know, right? And they found Smokey naked in Deebo's pigeon coop. The fact that Deebo even has a pigeon coop says a lot, But that's where they found Smokey, right? That happened Wednesday. Now, let's get to Friday, right? Throughout this movie, because we're going to get into Big Worm, right? But throughout this movie, Smokey is going to be chain smoking Big Worm's dro because he's trying to catch that high that he caught Wednesday night. He's high off the harbor. Okay? He didn't know he was smoking a twack joint. But, see, when you make choices like that, certain choices can be, well, I ain't going to say that word. We'll just say can lead you to be deleted. And that leads us to the events of the movie, right? And now we see Smokey walking up to the car, right? Big Worm's car, of course. And he says, what's up, Big Worm? And Big Worm, he's not trying to talk. He asks Smokey, hey, how much you got left? Smokey replies back, man, I got a lot. Big Worm says, man, you still ain't sold that bud yet, Smokey? Smokey says, man, I'm trying to, Worm. People just broke these days, Worm. And Worm says, I don't think you applying yourself, Smokey. And then he notices him twitching, right? But he also smells a familiar aroma. He's like, hold on. You smoking my stuff, Smokey? And Smokey's like, hell nah, I ain't smoking your stuff, Worm. And Worm asks again, like, you smoking my stuff? And he grabs that tool, right? While he's asking him. And Smokey's like, man, why would I do something like that, man? And Big Worm tells Smokey, look, I would hate to have to mess you up. Smokey, man, playing with my money, it's like playing with my emotions. And Smokey says, Big Worm, you the last person money I would mess with. I'll steal from my mama before I mess with your stuff. And you know this, man. And Big Worm just says, we'll see. And he drives off, right? And Smokey says, Floyd Evans looking mother. But understand this, in the Vlad interview, right? Big Worm confirms that he let a rapper by the name of King T on the album titled Triflin'. You guys see the album cover, right? He let King T use his vehicle for the album cover, right? So, Big Worm is the man. Don't ever get this twisted, right? Like we got the facts right here, right? And now we're in Smokey's room, and Smokey is rolling up, and Craig says, "That's all you do is smoke weed, man." Like, I'm trying to figure out how you going to sell bud and you smoking it. And Smokey says, "I don't know. That's my whole problem." And Craig says, "Big Worm going to come see about you." And Smokey says, "Big Worm not going to do a goddamn thing, man. Look, he need me." And Craig says, "Reds told me he smoked a dude before for like $50. And Smokey says, "I don't know, but I don't give a damn." See, Smokey, high off PCP, right? He doesn't fear or even care about a consequence. These people might jump off a bridge, jump off a building. They're high off PCP. In this case, Smokey's coming down from it, right? But who knows how strong his batch was? This stuff affects people differently, right? But anyway, we finally see Craig hitting some of Big Worm's dro that Smokey, of course, forced him to smoke, right? And, Craig asks, "Hey, is this some endo? Because it smells like some outdo." It's trying to clown Big Worm's bud, right? But we see Craig is high as a kite, right? And Craig is like, "Hold on, I can hear my heart beating." He's high as diesel gas, right? And Craig and Smokey, they walk in, and Craig, he has cotton mouth now, so he offers Smokey some Kool-Aid. And when he opens the cabinet, he's hallucinating now, and he sees Big Worm, and Big Worm sniffs and says, "You smoking my bud too? I'ma smoke you and Smokey, because y'all playing with my emotions." But Craig is tripping off that good Cali bud, right? And he opens the cabinet back, and he realizes he doesn't have any sugar, and we get that classic line, "Y'all never got two things that match, man. Ham, no cheese. Peanut butter, no jelly." We get that classic line, right? And now, I forgot to mention this, right? I'm so sorry I forgot to mention this. Yeah, Big Worm has a ice cream truck. That's what he uses. He uses that to maneuver around the city, and he pushes his dro that way, right? Very clever back then, right? So he has the ice cream business as a friend. He does sell some ice cream to some kids, but he takes some money too. Like we see in this scene, because we see an ice cream truck pull up on the Daytons, right? Smokey's upset because, of course, he knows it's Big Worm, and Big Worm has a line. Of course, this is the ice cream truck, right? And we see Big Man, he orders some chili Fritos, right? Big Worm takes his money, and we also see a young Megan Good, okay? She's trying to get some cool treats as well. At least we think, but we will touch on that. Just give me a second, right? But anyway, Big Worm immediately calls Smokey over. He's like, "Come over here." Smokey walks over to the truck, of course, and Smokey says, "What's up, Big Worm?" And Big Worm asks Smokey, "Hey, you sell that bud yet?" And Smokey says, "Hey, I sold some of it." And Big Worm says, "All right, well, give me the rest. Someone want to get a couple 20 sacks around the corner, And Smokey says, "I'm just BSing. I sold all that stuff, man." And Megan Good is upset. She telling Smokey to hurry up. And Smokey looks at little Megan and tells her, "Don't you see we handling grown folks' business?" Then Smokey pulls out $100 and proceeds to count it in a very funny way to make it seem like it was $200. He owes Big Worm $200 for the record, right? Be mindful, this is 94, so that equals $452 in today's money, right? And Big Worm says, "Smokey, that's $100. Stop playing with me, Smokey." And Smokey says, "You know what happened? You're going to laugh at this, right? See, Craig got fired yesterday." And Big Worm says, "What the hell that got to do with me?" And Smokey says, "Let me explain. We was talking about our problems, right? And you know how we do it. We start getting high." And Big Worm tells him, "Look, bruh, I'm going to be here at 10 o'clock on the dot. Not 10:03, not 10:06. If you ain't got my money or my bud, I'm smoking you and him." And Smokey says, "Damn, you got to smoke me?" And Big Worm says, "Man, get the hell out my face." And then, we see little Big Man asking, like, "Can I have my chili Fritos?" And Big Worm says, "You can't have nothing, fat boy." And little man says, "All right, well, I'm going to get my money back." And he calls for his mother, right? And Megan Good, like, "Man, I hate him." And we see Big Worm roll out, right? Now, in the Vlad interview, of course, Big Worm confirms the whole ice cream truck front saying he was using it to, of course, push Bud and whatnot. And Vlad asks him about Megan Good. Like, did you know she would be a movie star one day? And actually, Big Worm confirmed. He was like, yeah, I'm familiar with Megan Good. She's a big time celebrity now and acts like she doesn't know me. But what you don't know is I had to double back around that block. See, Megan Good's father was trying to get a dime bag, and sent Megan to the truck to cop that, Of course, she was going to get her Skittles and everything, too. But, yeah, he needed that. So, yeah, he doubled back. That's neither here nor there. Now, of course, Vlad asked him about the chili Fritos and was like, why did you do that to that kid? And Big Worm, he was like, he was very offended by that question, of course. Like, why you gotta ask that? If anything, I saved that kid's life. From high cholesterol. He didn't eat any chili Fritos, Look at Big Worm. Big Worm was like, look at me. Let me be the example. I saved that kid's life. And that's all that he said on that particular, subject, right? And then he was like, he knew, Smokey was trying to play with him with the money, and he already knew that he might have to send that black truck. Now, getting back to the movie. Naturally, when Smokey comes back from the truck, Craig asks, what did he say? And he said, we just got to pay him by 10. And Craig said, what you mean? We got to pay him. And Smokey says, man, that fool ain't going to do nothing, Craig. And Craig's like, huh? Hey, Worm. He tries to call Worm, but the truck already left, right? And Craig asks, man, what you tell him? And Smokey says, look, I just told him we was smoking, man. And Craig says, man, you was smoking. I hit like a little head for the little joint. And Smokey says, man, that fool not going to do nothing. And Craig asks Smokey, man, what'd he say? And Smokey says, yeah, he said, if we don't pay him by 10 o'clock, he gonna smoke both of us. He crazy, Craig. We need to stick together. And Craig I can't believe you got me in this mix with him, man. And Smokey says, look, I didn't put the blunt to your lip and make you smoke it. And Craig says, you might as well. Come on, Craig. Man, stimulate your mind, Craig. It's Friday. We gonna get you high. Mark and Smokey, right? And now, granted, Craig was about to get the money from his girl, right? But Felicia came over there, and when Craig girl saw that derailed the whole plan. She drove off, right? And Craig tells Smokey, damn, man, I had the money and I messed it up, right? And Craig asks Smokey, so what we gonna do? And Smokey says, man, that fool just playing, man. I ain't sweating it, because he's still coming down. No consequences, right? Remember that, right? And Craig says, that's your problem. Ain't nobody playing but you. You walk up and down the street all day playing. He ain't playing. You think he playing about his money? And then you got me dragged into it. He know where both our mothers stay. And you said he had the tool when you saw him, right? Name one person in the hood that plays like that. And Smokey apologizes for getting Craig involved, of course, and he tells Craig, look, I'm going to tell Big Worm I smoked all his bud, and I'll face those consequences, I'll let him know you had nothing to do with it. If I get dealt with, I get dealt with. And now it's 9:55 p.m., right? And we see Craig's father come in his room and say, hey, Dana told me about that big snake situation. And Smokey says, oh, Big Worm. And Craig's father says, big bug, big worm, I don't give a damn. Smokey, you always got something going. Get the hell out of my house. And Craig, you stay in this house. Big snake, big worm, what kind of name is that? I bet y'all drinking that wine and smoking that tweed, ain't you? Wearing them clothes halfway off y'all butts. Then he leaves, right? And then they walk outside, and Craig, like, you see anybody? And Smokey walk out as if he's a big dog, saying, look, don't nobody want none of Big Smoke? And then they see that black van that Big Worm sent over, and the lights cut off, and they already know what time it is. And granted, they try to buzz back, right? But Dub C hopped out with that Uzi, and he was really trying to finish them, right? Luckily, he doesn't. And we see them hiding in the back of the pickup, the bed of the pickup, of course. And we see Dub C and the boys, they're driving past, right? Now, Big Worm also speaks about this in an interview, right? And Big Worm confirmed in the Vlad interview. He said he just wanted to send a message to Smokey. He didn't want to harm them. He knows they're not about that. He knows when you getting down in a homicide game, that's when the feds is going to be following the Daytons on the ice cream truck. They're going to be looking for the permed hair, and he didn't really want that. And he was kind of upset that he even got Dub C and the boys involved, because Dub C will do that. He should have got somebody, that wasn't really, but he had to send a message, but Dub C was really trying to do that to them. But of course, that leads to Craig hitting Deebo with the brick and beating him up. And then once he's knocked out, Smokey takes Deebo's money, right? And now it's midnight Saturday and we see Smokey on the phone telling Big Worm, yeah, I got your money. And I don't appreciate you sending your little Jerry Curl crew to pop at me and my homie. They almost got dealt with. And Big Worm says, first of all, don't call me and talk to me like you some type of G, because I'll cut your balls off and hand them to your partner. I had to warn you too many times about my money, Smokey. It's the principle. It's the principalities in these streets. And Smokey says, well, I got your money. I got your money. And you can sell that stuff yourself next time, because I'm going to rehab. I'm done with this. But of course, Smokey was lying. But what difference does it make, right? Because we never see Smokey again, right? Now, of course, this is Rants. So, in the Vlad interview, right, Big Worm mentions that after he gets his money from Smokey, right? Now, after this movie comes out, his spot becomes hot. He said he got little white kids asking him in the city all the way in the valley, like, hey, Big Worm, Big Perm, hey, can I get a 10 bag? Can I get a dub bag? Like, it's hot, His operation is shut down. He said, after Notorious B.I.G. got deleted out there, right? In March of 97. Shortly after that, he moved to Grand Rapids, right? And he's invested in some dispensaries since then, right? Now, will he be on the last Friday? Who knows? A lot of those people passed away, right? But we shall see. We shall see, right? But please, don't be playing with Big Worm's money. That's like playing with his emotions. Big Worm's still out here. He doing good. He still got the curl. Y'all see him. Like I said, he did the Vlad interview. So clearly he's still out here. I don't really have to catch you guys up, because I'm sure he's probably going to be in the upcoming movie, But nonetheless, though, like and subscribe. Randumb Rants.